Our main speaker today is Talia Jackson. Talia Jackson, and also joining her as he introduced himself, is Adam Crumbless and Wally Pfeffer, who's one of the campaign co-chairs for 2025. We're delighted they're all here. Talia Jackson took the role of President and Chief Executive Officer of Heart of Missouri United Way on March 3rd, 2025. Jackson comes to the United Way with more than 20 years of experience leading programs in the telecommunications, engineering, and construction industries. Having spent more than a decade serving in various cross-functional development roles at Burns and McDonnell in Kansas City, she most recently served as Business Initiatives Department Manager before retiring from her position in 2024. Prior to joining Burns and McDonnell, Jackson held past roles in ethics and compliance and operations for Embark and Sprint. She is a 2017 graduate of the United Way of Greater Kansas City's Governance Academy and has served as a member of the Heart of Missouri United Way Board and Advisory Council. A native of St. Louis, she and her family moved to Columbia in August 2023 when her husband, Carrick Jackson, became the University of Missouri's 15th head baseball coach. They have two sons, Zion and Lazarus. The Jacksons previously lived in Columbia from 2011 to 2015. Welcome to you all.
Well, hello.
And Talia,
I can take it away?
yes, you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I am going to share my screen and hopefully this works. All right. Oh, but I want to bring you.
We see your desktop.
You see, okay, but you don't see my, hold on. Bear with me. Let me stop and see if I can restart. All right, no, where did it go? Well, oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. Let's see if this works better.
That's perfect.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Okay, let me try to get to where I can see you all now. I don't think that's going to let me, but I can see a couple of you. So we'll just make this work. Well, again, thank you so much for having me today. Kathy reached out and said, "Hey, we're a group that likes to know what's going on in the community and would love the opportunity to talk with you." And so I'm always excited to be able to talk about the great work that we're doing over at Heart of Missouri United Way. So I'm going to click through this slide. So Kathy shared a little bit about my background. I have had the pleasure of working with the United Way organization as a whole in a couple of different settings. I used to live and work in Kansas City for Burns and McDonnell, as was mentioned, and during that time, the Kansas City of the the United Way of Greater Kansas City had a program called their Governance Academy, which allowed corporate leaders to spend an immersive period. It was a year-long program that we, spent various days throughout the month, each month throughout the year, really digging into United Way, what it does, what its mission is, how it's run. And the idea behind it is that eventually we would be able to serve in board capacities at nonprofits within the Kansas City community. I am a baseball wife, and so I've moved quite a bit and ultimately found my way to Heart of Missouri United Way. I did have the opportunity to work at another United Way down in Louisiana and do some volunteering when we lived there. Just to give you some perspective, Carrick and I have been married for 14 years and have had 10 addresses over that period of time. So I've been blessed in that United Way has been there in a couple of different places and given me the opportunity to learn more about the organization as a whole. So when I was asked to join the board in May of 2024, it was a very easy yes for me. I had experience with the organization, knew the work that was being done at a national level, and was excited to be able to jump in doing it here in what Carrick and I hope to be our forever community. So I was doing that in May. I had retired, and you know, I can say that being married to a baseball coach, there have been a couple of times in our relationship that he's not been coaching, and I have seen that calling that coaching does for him. I have seen it, never felt it when I was working in corporate. And then I got a call, figuratively and literally, to look at taking on the role of president and CEO here of Heart of Missouri United Way, and made that happen in March of 2025. So I've been at the helm here now for, I think, 9 weeks, something like that. I've just completed my first 60 days. I am a baseball family. You'll see that picture of Carrick and I and the boys that was taken earlier. I am going to quickly become the shortest person in my house. Our boys are 13 and 12. Yes, they are baseball players, and they are in tournaments. I transition. I go from being a baseball wife from like February to early April, and then I become a baseball mom because we no longer can go to Carrick's games or even travel with him because I am on the road with the boys in all of their tournaments and whatnot. But baseball has given us a lot of blessings. And while I often claim to not be the best baseball spouse or mom, because there's a lot of aspects of the game that I don't understand, I do appreciate it, and know that it has done great things for me as a whole. So that's a little bit about me. I'll answer questions at the end if there's anything that I didn't share that you want to know about me. I tend to be a pretty open book. But let me talk with you a little bit about what we do at Heart of Missouri United Way. Our vision is to fight to improve lives in our community. And our mission really talks about how we go about doing that. We respond to changing community needs, forge strategic partnerships and foster effective solutions to tackle local issues, and harness the best resources, inspiring each other to join the fight in defeating barriers to basic needs, health, education, and financial stability. So let me go a little bit further and talk about kind of that last sentence a little bit. So when we talk about forging strategic partnerships, we have these three pillars, and this will come up again later on in my conversation, that we focus on health and basic needs, education, and financial stability. Those are the three pillars on which we support the community and that we do the work that we do. So what is the work that we do? At a very high level, and I'll go into more detail in all of these, one major thing that we do is we provide investments to fellow nonprofits through community impact. And so that is what a lot of people know us for, is really that community impact, giving money to our fellow nonprofits so that they can go out and do great work in the community. But we also have some programs that we run internally, one being Aspires, which is our nonprofit capacity building project. Give Five, which is we call that our civic matchmaking program. We are not a regular matchmaking program where you swipe left or swipe right. We do it only for civic matchmaking. We have Read Across Columbia, which a lot of people know us for. It's really a book donation program partnering with Columbia Public Schools. And then 211 is a community resource connection. So I'm going to talk about those a little bit more in detail. So community impact investments. This is a lovely slide with a lot of different logos on it. This is not inclusive of all of the partnerships that we have, but this gives you a sampling of the 25 different agencies that we work with, that we provide education, health and basic needs, and financial stability grants too. So we operate on a 3-year cycle. The partner agencies or nonprofit agencies in general will apply for grants, and working through a community impact model where we bring in working with the county, working with the city, and then working with a lot of local volunteers, we determine how to divvy up the money that we have to give. And so 1 year we do financial stability, the next year we do health and basic needs, and then we do education. And so when someone gets a grant, they get it for 3 years. Well, they get it for 1 year with the ability to renew that for 2 years, with the idea being that over those 3 years, we are really looking for some positive outcomes that can be measured within the community. And so that is something that is a sweet spot for us here at Heart of Missouri United Way, and really a lot of United Ways in general, is that we not only provide funding, but then we also work with these organizations to really make sure that we're holding them accountable, that if they're saying, hey, we're going to go out in the community and do XYZ, that they're actually doing XYZ. And so we work with them on that reporting and providing that information back to us. Additionally, organizations cannot get funding if they are not fiscally sound. And so we have a thorough certification process where we work with volunteers who have an accounting and financial background to review the finances, review the audit results of these local nonprofits before funding is even given, so that we know that we are being good stewards of that money that goes back into the community. So that's one piece of what we do and how the community impact investments work for our organization. And then I mentioned Aspire. So this is really taking the relationship that we have with nonprofits in the community and taking it to another level. It is funded by the City of Columbia, and it's really designed to support our fellow nonprofits. So there's 2 different ways in which they do that. One is we provide some quarterly classes where they can come and learn various various topics about running a nonprofit. So a couple of weeks ago, we had one that we had a class that was about building a board annual calendar, and what are the things that you as a board member or as an executive director or as somebody working within a nonprofit should be doing on an annual basis as you're working with your board. So having those types of education classes and really helping them to build their capacity, build their ability to be better in the community and provide more in the community. And then we also have this cohort program, and these are nonprofits that sign up to really go through a deep dive assessment and learn more about where their organization is flourishing and where there are some opportunities for improvement. It's a third-party assessment that they go through. And then at the conclusion of that assessment, they then get some one-on-one coaching and counseling. And then they also have the ability to apply for additional grants that will take the lessons that they learned from that assessment and give them the opportunity to go make some things happen. So for instance, if the assessment came back and said, man, you all really need to do some strategic leadership training for your organization. Well, they can apply for grants to then go out and obtain that training. And so it really gives, it's more of a long-term model that we're trying to build, again, that capacity and the ability to be better nonprofits within the community. Another big program that we have is the Give 5. And so this is that civic matchmaking program. So over 5 weeks, once a week, we get seniors, 55 and older, those that are nearing retirement or at retirement, come and learn about Columbia, they learn about Boone County, they learn about the challenges, and they learn about what the nonprofits in the community are doing to help solve those problems. They go, they actually do some work with those. They spend time at various nonprofits. Then, what the idea is, upon graduation from the program, they then will pick one of the nonprofits to go spend time with from a volunteering perspective. So that's where the give five is. If you give us 5 hours, or if you give us 5 weeks, and then ultimately you give the nonprofit 5 hours per month. I can tell you that many of our graduates spend way more than 5 hours a month because they just feel so compelled and so drawn into the work that is going on within this community. If anyone is interested, we have our next group is starting next week. And so if you're interested, we have a QR code there that you can scan to get more information, or you can go to our website and there's a form where you can sign up to join this next group and learn more and ultimately be partnered. Read Across Columbia. This is a third grade literacy program that we started with partnership with the Columbia Public Schools, and we go into targeted schools within the CPS footprint and give away books to kiddos. We target first and second graders with the idea of if we can enhance their reading capability by third grade, that makes a huge difference in their future success. There's been a lot of data around the importance of literacy at third grade and being at a certain level. And so that's why we target this particular program at that level. We end up giving 650 book kits away. So there's a lot of kiddos that we touch in the fall with this program, and they end up receiving 4 books plus a library coupon to get another book. So that's 5 books in their hands that they possibly wouldn't otherwise have. So it's a really great program that we work with. And then finally, 211. This is actually a statewide program that is run in coordination with our friends in the St. Louis and Kansas City area. If somebody dials 211 or that 800 number that you see there, it gives them connection to local resources. So they don't need to know who to call other than 211, and 211 can help put them into contact with the right resources based upon what their needs are in the phone call or the web chat that takes place. So I've talked a lot about what we do. I've talked a little bit about myself, and so I want to bring those together with this next slide, which is Grow With Us. And back in March, I had a meet and greet with the community and spent time talking about this, what I call it a mantra, is really kind of the rallying cry with this leadership that I am bringing into Heart of Missouri United Way. We see that our community needs more. When we are going through the assessment process, when we are going through the evaluation of how much money we can give back to the community, the ask is this big and our ability to give is this big. And that trend is continuing, right? That deficit is not going away. And so we know that we have to grow to meet those needs in the community. But it's important for me when I'm talking in the community that for me, growth is not just about growing the dollars, right? While that is important, I understand that sitting in this seat, I am now a fundraiser, which I did not do in corporate America. And so growing the dollars is important. But I've also talked about with my staff about growing our abilities, growing our capabilities within the organization. A lot of the work that the staff and I have been doing over these last several weeks has been looking at our foundational elements, looking at how we roll out policies, how we interact as a staff, and making sure that it is strong for us to be able to manage future growth. I've asked my board to grow in their mindset of allowing us to be out of the box and thinking different ways. And I'll give you an example. I asked the board for a student board member, which is very untraditional, but we need to tap into the younger generation so that we can better understand how it is that they think and they operate and how they think about philanthropy. Because for me, I need to grow that philanthropic heart. And I also need to grow my understanding of how that heart beats in the younger generation so that I can match those together. So when I brought that to the board, they went, okay, well, what does that look like? So we worked together, changed our bylaws, and now I have a student member and have the ability to actually increase that and get more student members on our board. So again, growing with us is about all aspects of growth. I'm asking the community, help me understand, what do you want from a United Way? You know, we've been around for 79 years now. What do you know about us? Where do you see the gaps? And really wanting to engage and have that growth mindset across everything that we do. So let's talk about how we do it all. We have an annual campaign, and every year, you know, starting in roughly the summertime, we start to really get involved with our workplace campaigns. And so that's when we work back with a lot of our corporate partners in engaging with their employees to payroll deduct and pledge dollars back to United Way. We also do a lot of work with individual donors like you all here on the call potentially to find avenues that we can engage with you all to understand how your giving can impact the community. And then we always have a ton of community volunteers, whether that is through the Give Five program that I just talked about, whether that is working with us as we're trying to assess organizations and making determinations on giving money back into the community. We are doing a lot with our community volunteers. And two of my favorite volunteers right now are pictured here. Nancy Tolson and Wally Pfeffer are our campaign chairs. That is a volunteer role, and they are really the face of our campaign and help coordinate so many. I wish I should count the org chart of the campaign. You know, probably close to 100 that are on that org chart of community volunteers and corporate volunteers that are working together to execute a successful campaign for us. So I have Wally and Nancy on the call. I definitely saw Wally, and I'm gonna turn the mic over to him for just a moment to see if he wants to add anything to what I said, or at least just wave and say hi.
Thank you, Talia. Talia's covered most of the bases today, I think all the bases. I just add that, and some of you will remember this phrase. When I was younger, I would remember people would say, think globally, but act locally. So as we think about the issues that challenge our nation and our world, a way to address those issues here in Columbia is through the United Way. They do fantastic work. They support organizations that we all know that are doing great things in our community, and they need our support. And through the United Way, you can make that happen. And we're excited about Talia's vision and the direction she's going to take us. And I'm sorry Nancy is not on the call. She's actually volunteering today at Compassus, where she has a heart. And so she couldn't make it today. But thank you all for including us and for including Talia in today's conversation with you.
well, my very last slide, I think my sharing stopped, but my very last slide is really just a thank you. Thank you for the time today. Thank you for the opportunity to share my message, to share the message of Heart of Missouri United Way. We are on all the social media platforms, so please like and follow and connect with us there. And I will be quiet and answer any questions.
Hi. Okay, Talia, can you field the questions yourself?
I surely can.
Do you see people on your screen now?
I do.
Okay.
So I see Amy, and then I'll come to Kathy. So Amy Barnett.
Hi, I am absolutely thrilled to understand so much more about an organization I've probably always known about. I had written a few questions. You helped to explain how you currently receive funding for the Heart of Missouri United Way. I'm wondering how you court other people to contribute.
Yeah, that is a big topic of conversation right now, because those workplace campaigns that I talked about, for a host of different reasons, we are seeing changes in that model, and not just here locally. We are blessed that we continue to have a very strong corporate partnership across the board and continue to be able to engage in workplace campaigns. But we are seeing those change. Large scale national, international companies generally don't do workplace campaigns anymore. They might have their own foundation, or they just find that it's best for their company culture to put a distance between giving and philanthropy of their employees and what happens, kind of 9 to 5. And so that is a big topic of conversation. So one of the things that we need to do is be able to connect with people outside of the workplace. The workplace has typically been how we have connected with individuals. And so Adam, who is my Chief Marketing and Resource Development Officer, and I are spending a lot of time figuring out how do we do a better job of stewardship, of making that connection. So whether that is like right before this call, I'm a very, very transparent person. So we were testing out different pins for me to sign over 500 letters in to reach out, and what color works best and how much space do I need, because I'm a big writer, and so we were, how do we do that? And that sounds little, but it's an important thing. So that is one piece, right? Connecting with donors outside of our traditional manner so that we can continue to engage with them, whether they change companies, whether their company stops workplace, whether they retire and move on, right? We still want to be able to maintain that relationship. The other piece is, I think, finding ways that we can engage in more grant receiving on our part. So
You're anticipating my next question.
Yes. And so that is a model. So the Aspires project that I talked about before, that is actually a grant that we received from the city of Columbia. But there are state and federal grants, and maybe we won't talk about the federal grants and that landscape quite so much, but there are government grants. There are a lot of private grants that are out there. The challenge, though, is it is rare that you will see what we call a pass-through grant, where we can take money from a grant perspective and actually give it to another nonprofit. That is not a traditional model, and that is where we do a lot of our work. We do more than pass through, as I mentioned before, right? We are doing the certification, we are doing the accountability piece, but even still, that is a rare model that we can do. So we have to find ways of other engagement, either with the nonprofit or with the community directly, to give back in other ways that those grants would allow us to do. So we are doing a big board retreat here in a couple of months where we're going to work with our board to kind of talk about what does United Way, Heart of Missouri United Way look like when we grow up, and as we are making and seeing these changes in the marketplace, and I use that term because I'm a corporate gal, but in the community and in the nonprofit sector, as we're seeing those changes, how are we responding? And so more to come on that. I've got some good thoughts and some ideas, but I need to let my board marinate on them first. So
okay, just a couple more, and then I've got to
I'll come
give
back.
Kathy a chance.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
So to the grants, I'm a retired elementary school teacher who has written some successful grants, but that whole process of grant writing. So what I just jotted down, do you offer assistance, or does someone offer assistance with writing what would ultimately become a successful grant?
We don't today outside of our own grant writing process. And so, early on in the process, before nonprofits have officially applied, and as they're going through kind of the letter of intent process with us, we work with them to understand how are they going to use the money, how are they going to measure their outcomes and their success. Where are they getting other funding? How are their expenses and their admin costs and all of that? So we're having those conversations so early on in the process, so that when we say, okay, now it's time for you to respond to our RFP or to apply, right, that they are in a better position to be successful in going through that process. When they are in the process, we don't do that though. It has to happen before. We kind of take a hands-off approach when they're in the moment.
But
Now,
it sounds to me like you are offering great
Yep.
guidelines, at least.
Yep. Now, grant writing outside of us, no, we don't. That is not something that we do today, and helping to provide that service. So yeah, but you don't know what the future might hold.
Hey, you may have some volunteer who would be able to assist. One last question, and then really I
Adam,
have
did
to...
you take that down? Adam, did you take down Amy's name? Okay, sorry.
So one more question. I'm just curious because obviously you're hitting a lot of very important targets. Is there an audience you still hope to reach as far as volunteers or recipients?
So I'll talk with the volunteer side first. I have always said that volunteerism is it's almost a journey that we go on, right? If I think about it, I'm going to use myself, and I don't think that I'm that different than others. When I was early in my career, not making a lot of money, I could volunteer my time. I didn't have kiddos. I worked and that was it. So I could volunteer my time, and I could give to, I could do that to several different places. And then I had kiddos. And then my time and my money tended to go towards their schooling, to programs that were, around the kid aspect, right? Then I got a little bit farther in my career, and I could give more. I could maybe give back to my university. At that point, I knew about United Way, and so I started giving to United Way. Whatever that calling might be. Now you're at a point where maybe you're in your 30s, right? And now you have a different model, and then that, I think, that grows, right? Now you can start to give more as you're advancing in your career, and hopefully advancing in your paycheck, and then you retire, and then you're like, okay, well, let me go back to giving of my time. And maybe at that point too, you've had some planned giving conversations where you've thought about the philanthropic organizations that you're a part of, and you want to give to them in your legacy, right? And so you think about that. So I think from a volunteering perspective, we have to be prepared to take people where they're at. I do think that there is a population, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think in the 40-ish, and I don't know if Adam would agree with this, but 40-ish and above, we probably have a good connection either through workplace or direct. I think in our 30-ish and below, we as Heart of Missouri United Way have not connected really well with them. And so I think we have an opportunity to do better. From a recipient perspective, we changed our model about 12 or 13 years ago, where historically there were nonprofit organizations that we continually gave to year after year. And that is what they call the community chest model, where we would raise funds and then give those funds back to nonprofits. The challenge was newer, smaller nonprofits might not be able to receive because they just hadn't been on the list. So back, like I said, 12 or 13 years ago, we changed to this community impact where we said, all right, let us open this up. We have the 3 pillars that I talked about: education, health and basic needs, financial stability. Let's open this up to the community to see what else is out there and where our giving might be, and then let's listen to the community. Let's actually have volunteers. Like I was a volunteer that read through all of those grants, and sat in a room with several other folks, and let's make some decisions and who gets what and how, and what do we think about this application and their ability to actually perform those services, et cetera, et cetera. So that model allowed us to get more, but I still think that there is an opportunity for us to do more. And again, I have some thoughts on what that will be, but I need to vet that out with my board a little bit more. I do think that we still have a grant application process that can be difficult for smaller nonprofits. And so there's probably an opportunity for us to think about some low barrier grant opportunities for maybe some younger startup
Once you taste that,
So,
that little bit of success.
right. And we have some really cool stories. You know, Wally was on a call where we yesterday heard from Janice Threat over at Grade A Plus, where she talked about for years she wasn't getting any, you know, kind of any money. It was her and her husband digging into their pockets and making their nonprofit work. And finally, they were able to get money from United Way, and they saw things take off because then they were on the list. It's almost like they got that good housekeeping seal of approval. Because then the city was like, hey, what work are you all doing over there? And then the county was like, hey, what are you guys doing over there? And so it was great because there was an ability for them to go out and seek additional funding and then grow and seek additional funding and grow. So we've seen that in our history. That's one example, and you know, Love Columbia. Jane talks about that. For those of you that know Jane Williams over at Love Columbia, that's another really powerful example. So I would love the ability for us to have more opportunities like that in the nonprofit sector. So.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. All right, Kathy, I'll go to you and then I'll come over to the Mallorys.
Okay, thank you, Talia. I noticed in the list of the screenshot that you showed of several agencies that have that receive United Way funding, that there are several that have been recently impacted by federal funding cuts. And I'm wondering if the United Way movement across the country is currently doing any advocating with the federal government or plans to do any advocating, sort of to say, yes, the local communities are doing a great deal, but we still need partnership from the federal government.
Yes, there has been a big advocacy push at the what we call the global or United Way worldwide level They have recently hired quite a few staff members. There are, United Way on Capitol Hill, movements that are going on where they're bringing in leaders like me to come and speak on behalf of our local United Ways to federal House and Senate members to share the story, but also making sure that there's an understanding that the impact of various decisions that are being considered, particularly in the education and child health care areas. Those tend to be the areas that Worldwide are really speaking to, because those pillars that I talked about tend to be consistent across the entire United Way network. So yes, there is a lot of advocacy work that is taking place, and I think the CEO of Worldwide, her name is Angela Williams, is really behind a lot of that. She's not been in her role for very long, but we're seeing some really good work that's taking place there.
So glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. All right, I don't know if I'm turning it over to David or Carol, so I'll just say the Mallory.
Thank you. This is David's question this time. So thank you, Ms. Jackson, first of all, for filling me and teaching me so much that there's so much more to United Way than all I was aware of. After years in the corporate world, I'm retired now, but years in the corporate world, all I knew about was what you're called the community chest, community impact. I didn't know there was anything else, all these other things that you enlightened me on. So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you for listening.
Yeah, my question specifically is about the Aspires program. You said it's geared to supporting nonprofit sector. Here I have to plead ignorance. Sometimes I get confused on what's non-sector. We might be considered the Muleskinners as political, and I don't know if that falls under non-profit or not. But would people from Muleskinners be able to participate in this Aspires thing? Now, I know Sarah does, but she's the head of an actual nonprofit. Is that open to the other community members?
So I can tell you that the classes that we hold every quarter are open. Those are definitely open. The cohort where I talked about kind of the assessment, I don't know. So I'm going to ask Adam to take a note, and I will give an answer back to Kathy to see if there are any constraints or requirements that we put there. So I have to put a pin in that question. I have a dog that is very excited that I'm working from home this afternoon. So if you keep seeing my arm, he keeps, one of my baseball named dogs keeps elbowing me trying to get pets because he thinks when I'm quiet that I'm done with my call. So you guys are getting the real me today.
Well, now I'm curious. What's his name?
That was Satchel.
Oh, good.
And then I also have Gibson, and they're litter mates. So I have Gibson, which for those in the baseball world could be Josh Gibson or Bob Gibson. I think my husband leans towards Bob Gibson, but we'll let it go.
And Dave Taylor just noted that his dog is named Leo, so he had a big day yesterday. Well, I want to say that we are very excited to meet the new director CEO of United Way. We're going to meet the new president of the local chapter of NAACP next week. Although we do know her a bit.
I might want to come to that. I saw that and I was like, oh, I gotta look at my calendar. I might want to come and hear that. So you might see me again.
you know how to come. You just go to our webpage and get the link. And so, I mean, we love our old friends too, of course, but meeting new people is really quite exciting. Speaking of old friends, we like to note when we have a serving political officer in attendance, and we have our good old friend Bob Nolte, who is currently Boone County Recorder of Deeds. I don't think there's anyone else who's actually here holding an office. And I didn't notice anyone from the press. Sometimes we recognize them too. Please identify yourself if you're from the press. We like to at least make a note of that, and sometimes that's helpful to our guests too. I guess my question is kind of general. We're very busy with political things, and as was described to you, that now that we've had our recent election, we like to hear about community things too. But what do you, and there's this point that was just raised about partisan, nonpartisan, uh, uh, nonprofit, for profit. I mean, there's so many classifications that we have to get comfortable with. We're struggling with our own bylaws now on some of those aspects too. But putting all that aside, that's something we all have to deal with. What do you tell a small organization like ours to do, how to stay in touch or do what we can to support our community the best? We're always asking ourselves that question.
You know, for me, I mean, it would be easy for me to say, well, give to United Way because we support the
Yeah,
community as a whole, right? Like, I
right,
mean, again, I understand that the seat that I sit in, and so that's my easy answer.
right.
But my Talia answer is find what you have passion with and give your talent and your time. Um, the benefit that I get out of when I was a board member, being able to give my talent and my time back to the organization, I was giving a check as well. But also the fact that I could help the organization grow based upon the experience that I had will ultimately allow them to, you know, to grow even more. We can use dollars all day long, but we are seeing the need for volunteers. We are seeing the need for people to, whether it's 5 hours a month, whether it is more, whether it's an hour a quarter, to be engaged. Because I think what we're seeing is those dollars are getting constrained. And so where we might have had paid people that were actually able to do some of these things in the community, that's changing. And so now we have to dig deep, not only in our pocketbooks, but in our time and in our talents to give back. So find what's passionate for you, right? If it is in if it is in childcare, if it is in like there's a nonprofit that in Colombia that rescues Chihuahua dogs. If that is your passion, own it and love it and help them. So that would be my message would be find what you love and pour into it. I think Wally's got some comments too that he wants to co-sign with
Well,
you.
I caught one aspect of what you were saying that's helpful us is to devote some time to thinking about how we can help our volunteers be better volunteers. I mean, I think we forget to do that, just doing the business of our organization, and we really have to think very carefully about when people come to us, how do we engage them? You know, and we got to think very
Yeah, I was
carefully
gonna,
about that. Wally, please.
there we go. Yes, I think we all recognize that the numbers of volunteers or members of so many groups, whether it's Muleskinners or Optimus, Cosmo, Kiwanis, and so on, the numbers of so many of these longtime volunteer groups are dropping. Rotary also, but anyway, and so for folks who are looking for a way to get involved but don't want to do so in an institution or an organization like those, this is where Give 5, Nancy is very excited about Give 5. We didn't know much about it beforehand, but she's going to begin taking the classes so that she can see which of our partner agencies need volunteers, and they all do. They would all love to have more volunteers. And I think organizations like this and other organizations can help stretch their volunteers by getting engaged in Give 5.
I emphasize that because working with students who wanted to volunteer before as a faculty member, I realized that it really does take a lot of my time to organize them and to help them do their own self-organization. And yet, the most meaningful and most productive things could result from allotting that time to them. It's a hard thing. We need experienced people like yourselves to keep reminding us that this is what we're doing and this is what we have to do. And we can't get frustrated with that part because in some ways, for the long term, it is the most important part. Let's see. We have 5 minutes left. If well, I think I will read what Adam wrote, unless he wants to talk about Aspires or something else. What else do I see?
Adam
in
was
there?
saying, I see, this is why I love having Adam to help me. He reminded me that our Aspires effort also provides skill building, such as grant writing tips and best practices to help nonprofits grow their ability. So that is a part of that program as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish we had a kind of subset like that. I've been trying to think about it, but of course, every week I have a number of things to think about, and that's and I want to get my gardening done too. so it's a good thing we don't have an election going on. We can think about some of these broader strategic things right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Who else?
Well, I put the link to the United Way website there in the chat so that you have that, and then I'm going to give the direct link to Give 5 and throw that in there just as well, if I can get my mouse to agree with me. So if you want to know more about that Give 5 program, and I normally would not do the full orientation, but we just found out that our staff member, her name is Lorraine, who normally does it for us, got served for jury duty that could potentially start on Monday. So the backup plan is they get to hear me. So if you're interested in hearing me talk for a while, come to Give 5, because it looks like I might be running it next week.
Wow. That is an impressive invitation.
Well, again, I am so appreciative of the time. I will also put my email address in the chat, and if you all have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me and engage me, and I would be happy. I think Pam is raising her hand.
What is the date of Give 5 and where, so I can put it in the announcements?
Say it one more time.
You're not here. What? There must be some.
Yeah, Pam, it's your internet. She was asking what the date of Give 5 is, and so she can put it in the announcements.
It starts May 15th and runs every Thursday after that. Graduation would have been on June 19th, but that is Juneteenth, and so we've pushed the graduation back 1 week, and so that is the last would be June 26th. So starting May 15th and running 5 weeks.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank Talia and our other guests from United Way, our local United Way group, for enlightening us on this really complicated and kind of exciting now situation. And so we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. And for the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day.
Oh, yes. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see so many friendly faces.
Thank you all so much. It's been wonderful.
Okay, Dave Taylor is going to take us into our business session, which involves a lot of announcements about upcoming events, if you're interested